You walk slowly through the misty harbour of Belfast, your footsteps soft on damp cobblestones, each one muffled by a low fog that clings to your ankles like the memory of a dream. The air is heavy with the scent of iron and coal smoke, tinged faintly with salt drifting in from the distant sea. Somewhere in the quiet distance, the deep, hollow clang of a hammer rings out, deliberate and slow, like a heartbeat echoing across the shipyard. You stop for a moment, gazing up at the looming skeleton of steel and ambition rising before you. The Titanic, or rather, what's to become the Titanic. Right now, it's more of an iron ribcage, vast and cold, and only just beginning to resemble the opulent legend it would soon become. The sound of your breath mixes with the morning fog as you tilt your head back to take it all in. It's taller than most buildings you've seen, and still, it will grow. There's something strangely peaceful about this industrial scene. Workers murmur to one another in low voices. The rhythm of tools striking metal creates a kind of lullaby. Clink, pause, clank, pause, as if the ship itself is breathing in its sleep. You walk a little closer, careful not to slip on a patch of oil-slicked stone, and find yourself beside a small group of engineers huddled over a thick roll of paper spread across a wooden table. Blueprints, faded edges, smudged ink. One of the men, a tall fellow with a thin moustache and sleeves rolled to his elbows, is frowning deeply as he gestures to a section of the design. If you lean in just a little, you can hear snippets. She'll be unsinkable, they say. But look at this. Bulkheads only go up to E-deck. Someone grunts in agreement, rubbing the back of his neck. Looks good on paper, sure. But what if she floods from the top? Ever think of that? You shuffle away quietly, not wanting to intrude, but your thoughts echo long after you've passed them. Unsinkable. It's a comforting word, reassuring. But you feel a tickle of doubt in the back of your mind. Not loud, just a quiet dissonance, like a piano note that doesn't quite belong. In the lullaby, the fog begins to lift slowly, revealing more of the massive Harland and Wolff shipyard. You catch sight of the enormous gantry cranes, Samson and Goliath, towering overhead like sleeping giants, and beneath them hundreds of men, some young and skinny, others broad-shouldered and weary, move like ants across the ship's frame. There's a rhythm to their movement, and a fatigue too. You see it in the way they pause, hands on hips, or stretch aching backs as if even the promise of greatness can't lighten the burden of 14-hour days. As you continue your quiet stroll along the edge of history, the ship looms beside you like a living thing. She doesn't have her name painted on her hull yet. Not officially. For now, she's just number 401. Another project in a long line of dreams made solid by rivets and sweat. You pause by a cart of warm tea mugs and half-eaten biscuits. The smell of strong black tea mingles with grease and sawdust, a strangely comforting scent. You notice a young apprentice balancing a mug in one hand while scratching behind his ear with the other, absent-mindedly getting oil on his cheek. He yawns, blinking hard. He's probably 17. You wonder if he has any idea that he's working on a future legend or a future tragedy. A soft wind stirs your coat as you wander past a large wooden crate labelled Lifeboat Davids. The label makes you smile faintly. How oddly poetic that something designed to save lives is packed so tightly in a box. You run your fingers lightly along the wooden slats, the grain rough and splintered beneath your touch. There are so many boxes like this, and you can't help but notice there are far fewer labelled lifeboats. But that's a conversation for later. For now, you find a spot to rest. An overturned crate near the boundary fence where the shipyard ends and the city begins. Belfast hums faintly behind you. The scent of baking bread drifts in from some far-off bakery. Children shout and laugh, chasing each other down narrow cobblestone alleys. The city is alive. The Titanic is alive too, in a way, breathing in steel and steam and belief. You close your eyes for just a moment and imagine what it must feel like to be one of the workers, or the designers, or the financiers who will ride her in first class, toasting to their own brilliance, entirely unaware that even now the seeds of failure are nestled deep within the dream. Not because anyone wanted it to go wrong, but because no one believed that it could. Unsinkable. That word again. You let it echo in your mind like a lullaby you're not sure you want to hear. A promise so bold it dares the sea to prove it wrong. A soft bell chimes from somewhere in the yard. Lunchtime, perhaps. The workers begin to gather in small clumps, unwrapping paper parcels of bread and cold meat, sipping lukewarm tea. You join them in spirit, feeling the warm weight of fatigue settle in your limbs. Even imagination can tire you out, it seems. But the good kind of tired, the kind that makes you feel like you've truly been somewhere. The Titanic is still months away from completion, but already her fate is being sealed. Rivet by rivet, choice by choice. It's not the iceberg that damns her, not yet. It's the quiet decisions made in rooms filled with cigars and confidence. It's the shortcuts no one will admit to, the compromises quietly accepted. It's the hubris wrapped in good intentions and gilded menus. You watch a bird land on the half-finished rail of the upper deck, preening its feathers lazily in the pale sun. It doesn't know what this ship will become. Or perhaps it does. In the quiet, unknowable way animals sometimes sense storms before they come. And as the shipyard fades into a soft blur, and the hammering slows, and the fog drifts in again like a curtain being drawn, you feel yourself slowly drifting too, into a gentler rhythm, into a quieter place. You're not leaving the past behind. You're just letting it settle around you like a well-worn coat. And in that stillness, there's peace. Not in what happened, but in the understanding of it will stay here for a moment longer, letting the soft clang of distant tools lull you, letting the cold iron of the Titanic whisper its early secrets to your resting thoughts. The story is just beginning, and there's still so much more to see. The fog of the Belfast shipyard fades slowly, gently, like a dream you were never meant to remember in full. You're not quite sure how long you've been sitting there, watching the ship rise like a monument to man's ambition. But time has grown soft around the edges. You feel it in your bones, not old exactly, just weighted, like you're wearing someone else's coat, worn down by stories. Now, you rise slowly, your steps quiet as you begin to drift further away from the construction yard. The murmurs of workers fade behind you, and the clinking of hammers becomes more distant. like the memory of a song that used to play in another room. You walk into a different Belfast now. The streets are narrower here, uneven underfoot. You shush past shuttered windows, faded signs, the smell of coal smoke curling from chimneys and weaving itself into the scent of fresh bread. It's 1909, or maybe 1910. Time is a little blurred here. We won't worry about the exact year. We'll just let the world unfold at its own sleepy pace. A tram rattles past, its wooden frame groaning ever so slightly as it rounds the corner. A newspaper boy shouts something unintelligible, his cap too large for his head, slipping down over his ears as he darts away with more energy than you've had all week. You smile. There's something oddly comforting about cities from the past. No traffic lights, no phones buzzing in pockets, just the steady rhythm of footsteps, hooves and small dramas unfolding on every corner. You find yourself walking alongside a man in a wool coat, his hands clasped behind his back. He's muttering to himself, working out some complicated thought. An engineer, maybe. You don't interrupt. He seems deeply entangled in the mathematics of greatness. 4 boiler rooms, maybe 5 if the pressure holds. He mumbles, then stops to adjust his hat, and continues on without noticing you. You glance up at the skyline, where smokestacks poke through low-hanging clouds like fingers pointing at some unseen future. The world is building more than just ships. Now, it's building an era. The Titanic isn't the beginning. She's a symptom, a culmination, a finale wearing the mask of a debut. You drift into a quieter part of town now, past brick buildings and narrow alleyways where washing lines sway lazily in the breeze. And then, unexpectedly, you find yourself in a drawing room. Don't ask how you got here. Dreams are funny that way. The walls are panelled in dark wood, polished and glistening in the firelight. A globe sits on a desk near the window, and rich velvet curtains drape the tall panes of glass. You can smell brandy, and tobacco, and ambition. In front of you stands a group of men, not rough shipbuilders, but financiers, gentlemen with too much confidence and just enough vision to be dangerous. One of them, the tallest, with greying temples and gold cufflinks, taps the edge of a newspaper. Olympic is already turning heads, he says smoothly, referring to Titanic's nearly identical sister ship. But Titanic? Titanic. Must be more, bigger, grander. She must be unforgettable. Another man chuckles, sipping from a tumbler of dark liquid. Unforgettable indeed. Just don't let her be unprofitable. They all laugh, the kind of laugh that says nothing could possibly go wrong, because no one in the room has ever really failed before. You watch from the corner, unseen, like a ghost of the future, and in the firelight you notice the shadows behind their eyes, the unspoken truths, the small compromises. The lifeboats, someone asks absently. Unnecessary. She'll float even if flooded through the first 4 compartments. But the regulations, we meet them. Perfectly legal. They nod in satisfaction. A box ticked. A risk calculated and quietly dismissed. The fireplace crackles and, for a moment, the shadows flicker. You notice a model of the Titanic on the mantel. Brass and ivory, delicate and precise. You reach out, letting your fingers drift across it like a pianist brushing familiar keys. It's so beautiful and so doomed. You step away from the warmth and back into the cold night. Outside, the city is dreaming. The people walking the streets. They have no idea that history is being assembled just a few blocks away. They're too busy living. Couple passes you arm in arm, whispering and laughing. A child drops an apple and chases it down the cobbled street. A coal cart rolls by, the horse's hooves clip-clopping rhythmically, like a lullaby in 4/4 time. You follow the sound, slow and steady, until you find yourself at the gates of Harland and Wolff once more. It's night time now. The yard is quiet. Tools have been put away, fires banked low. The skeleton of the Titanic looms dark against the sky, like the bones of a sleeping beast. You walk the perimeter again, slowly, deliberately. And as you do, the pieces start to come together. Not just the rivets and decks, but the world around her. This is a time of extremes. Lavish excess for the wealthy. Brutal labour for the poor. Empire stretched across continents, and yet fear of change clinging to the edges. You see it in every brick, every pipe, every soot-covered window. There's a pressure in the air, not the kind that storms bring, but something deeper, a pressure to be grander, faster, richer, even if it means shaving off just a little safety here, a little caution there. After all, who's going to stop progress? Who's going to question a dream? The answer, of course, is the sea, but that's still a long way off. You sit down on a low wall across from the dock and watch the moon rise over the ship's frame. It glints off the steel like a spotlight on a stage. The Titanic hasn't yet made her first voyage, but already she's a performance, a showpiece, a symbol, and symbols are heavy things. You close your eyes, listening to the sound of water lapping gently against the quay. Somewhere in the dark, a night bird calls. You feel the weight of the era pressing gently around you, not heavy, but full of detail, full of motion, full of things people hoped for, and things they chose not to see. The cold night air brushes your skin, and for a moment you imagine what it might feel like to stand on the Titanic's deck when she's finally finished. The wood warm beneath, your shoes, the wind kissing your cheeks, the sea stretching endlessly ahead. You'll get there. We will. But for now, let's stay in this quiet before the crescendo. Let the sounds of the past settle you. Let the unfinished ship hum softly in your thoughts. Let the weight of decisions made in boardrooms and boiler rooms wrap around you like a heavy blanket of history. Because this isn't just the story of a ship. It's the story of everything that built it, and everything that chose to believe it could never sink. We'll rest here now, just for a while longer. You're safe. The sea is far away. The hammers are quiet, and the past is whispering gently to you, like the tide brushing against the shore of sleep. The quiet hum of the city fades as you return once again to the skeleton of a legend. You're back in the shipyard, where dawn glows faintly on the horizon. The sky is pale lavender, streaked with the first threads of morning light, and a soft drizzle rests on your shoulders like dew. The scent of damp earth and warm iron fills your lungs. Even the air here feels tired, not unpleasantly so, more like an old friend who stayed up too late telling stories. You take a slow step forward, onto the worn planks laid over the muddy ground, your boots making soft thuds that echo slightly in the morning stillness. Around you, the yard is just beginning to stir. A cough from somewhere behind a stack of timber, the clatter of tools being arranged, the gentle hiss of steam escaping from some invisible valve, and towering above it all, the Titanic. Her frame more complete now. She's wearing her skin. Steel plates curve along her hull, smooth and gleaming with the sheen of Belfast rain. You reach out and touch one gently. It's cold and vast, the kind of vast that reminds you how small you are. You tilt your head, watching a pair of riveters halfway up the port side, their tiny silhouettes perched on scaffolding. One holds a white-hot rivet with long tongs, while the other swings a sledge with practiced ease. You hear the bang-clang-bang echo out like a heartbeat, echoing in the chest of the ship, and yours. It's easy to forget, here in the stillness, just how much noise built the Titanic. The hiss of acetylene torches, the clang of hammers, the groan of steel under strain, the murmur of tired men, thousands of them, each leaving behind tiny fingerprints in the form of effort. You can feel it under your boots, in the air, even in your bones, and if you listen closely, you might hear it too. The rhythm of ambition being forged, one glowing rivet at a time. A cart rattles past behind you, pulled by a thick-shouldered horse whose breath fogs into the morning air, like a little cloud engine. The cart is filled with wooden crates, brass fittings, you think, or perhaps linens, carefully bundled for the first-class staterooms. Even now, the luxury is being laid down piece by piece. You find yourself drifting toward the outfitting sheds, long buildings lined with windows, their glass fogged and scratched by years of steam and dust. Inside, you pass stacks of polished wood panelling and coiled ropes, finely embroidered upholstery wrapped in thick muslin, ornate light fixtures glinting dully in the dim light. The smell here is softer: wax, sawdust, fabric, and a faint trace of perfume, as if someone spilled a secret on the floor and no one ever cleaned it up. You trail your hand across the edge of a finely carved banister. The wood is smooth, warm to the touch, and you can almost hear the future passengers chattering as they descend the grand staircase it will soon become part of. There's an echo of music here, faint as a memory. A string quartet, perhaps, tuning quietly beneath the hum of distant conversation. In a corner, two upholsterers are working on a velvet chaise lounge. One grunts as he adjusts the fabric, then curses under his breath when a spring bites his finger. You smile. Even the most opulent comfort begins with small frustrations. Somewhere between calluses and craftsmanship, luxury is born. You step away again, your path winding through half-finished rooms and scattered pieces of a dream. There's a quiet intimacy to this moment. No one rushing, no grand speeches, just the ship, slowly becoming herself. It's as if she's trying on her body, one detail at a time. Eventually, you find yourself outside again. The drizzle has stopped. The air is damp and still. And there, standing beside the slipway, is Thomas Andrews. You recognize him from a distance. Neatly dressed but not fussy, sleeves rolled up just enough to suggest work done with his own hands. He's young, but with eyes that have watched things being built and broken. You don't approach, Just observe. He's looking up at the ship, but not proudly. Not exactly. It's something else. Thoughtful, measured, like he's talking to her with his eyes, asking her to be kind, asking her to forgive the compromises, asking her to hold together. He turns away after a moment, jotting a note in a leather-bound book, then disappears down a gangplank. You remain still, your own thoughts drifting in his wake. Every decision, every blueprint, every conversation spoken in smoke-filled rooms, they've all led here. And yet, as real as the Titanic has become, there's something fragile about her too. As if beneath the armor of steel and rivets lies something more delicate, the trembling weight of expectation. You walk alongside her hull again, your fingers trailing gently across a freshly painted stripe, deep navy, cold to the touch. The sound of your breathing joins the soft shuffle of boots in the yard, the occasional cough, the distant clang of a spanner dropped by clumsy hands. Thunk, thunk, thunk. You pause near a storage shed where a man is struggling to align a massive propeller blade on a cart. He wipes sweat from his brow with a dirty sleeve, then mutters something under his breath about how no one ever helps until the job's done. You chuckle to yourself. Even in history, some things never change. The propeller, nearly 23 feet across, gleams faintly even in the grey morning. A marvel of design, heavy but elegant, made to push the ship forward, endlessly forward. You wonder how such a thing can move so effortlessly through the ocean, or whether it will not far from here. The boilers are being lowered into place, huge rounded beasts of iron and pressure. You peek through an opening where workers in sweat-streaked shirts tighten bolts and test gauges. It smells like fire and oil and long days. One of them sneezes and swears at the same time. You smile again, and then, finally, the engine room. You descend into it slowly, footsteps echoing off the cold metal stairwell. It's cavernous, like the belly of a cathedral built not for prayer, but for power. Triple expansion steam engines rise around you like mechanical lungs. Silent for now, but soon they'll breathe fire and thunder. You imagine it. The pistons pumping, the shafts turning, the decks above gently trembling with motion. You place your palm on a metal beam. It's warm, still holding the heat of the previous day's work. You feel the story in it, not words, but weight, pressure, the kind that builds up, unnoticed, until something has to give. And as you stand there, in the quiet dark of the Titanic's heart, something inside you settles. You're not just watching a ship being built anymore. You're inside the dream itself. You're standing among the choices, the people, the possibilities. Every inch of this ship is soaked in intention, and some of it soaked in denial. But you don't have to think about that yet. Not now. Not here. You climb back out into the daylight, the clouds parting just enough to let a pale sun brush the steel with a ghost of warmth. The Titanic rests before you, more whole now than ever before. She looks ready. Almost. You sit again, your back against a wooden crate, and listen to the wind stirring the tarps overhead. The ship is coming alive. So too is her destiny. But for now, just rest. Let the hum of labour soothe you. Let the smell of oil and damp linen carry you. Let the sound of rivets lull you back into that liminal place between waking and sleep. where history is soft and dreams are heavy with meaning. There's still more to see. The story is still unfolding, but not just yet. The sky is a soft blanket of grey this morning. The kind of grey that doesn't threaten rain so much as it promises quiet. You open your eyes slowly. The sound of distant gulls mixes with the rhythmic hush of waves against the quay wall. For a moment, you aren't sure where you are. But then you feel it. Steel beneath your fingertips. A gentle warmth in the air, and the unmistakable presence of something immense just behind you. The Titanic. She's complete now. Or nearly. Standing proud at the top of the slipway, her hull painted, polished, and towering. You turn to look up at her again like you've done so many times before. But this time feels different. This time, she's awake. Today is launch day. You're not alone here. A crowd has gathered. Workers, families, finely dressed ladies with wide hats and parasols. Small children clinging to their father's trouser legs. Even the weather has made room for the event. The clouds hanging back just enough to let a soft, watery sun filter through. It's cool, but not cold. The kind of cool that stirs your senses just enough to keep you present. You find a spot near the front, along the ropes that separate the onlookers from the slipway. The air is filled with quiet chatter. Not excitement, really. Not the kind you'd hear at a festival or parade. Something calmer, more reverent. The kind of hush that settles before a great moment, not because it's expected, but because something deep in everyone's chest knows that this will be remembered. You let your eyes wander. To your left, a young boy sits on his father's, shoulders waving a small cloth handkerchief. His cheeks are rosy, and he keeps asking questions the father doesn't quite answer. You hear snippets. Will it float? And can you see America from the deck? Innocent questions that hang in the air like bubbles, never quite popping. You turn your gaze back to the ship. Over 880 feet of gleaming steel, cradled in wooden supports, and ready to meet the sea. She rests on a bed of grease and soap and tallow. Over 20 tons of it, spread carefully along the slipway to ease her descent. You can almost smell it. Thick, waxy, oddly sweet, mingling with salt and iron and damp wood. Somewhere above, a whistle blows, sharp, clean, and final. And then it begins. You feel it before you see it. A subtle vibration in the ground, a tremor in the air. The crowd leans forward as one. Children gasp. Women clutch gloves to their lips. The Titanic moves, slowly at first, almost shy. A hesitant whisper of motion. Then smoothly, she slides forward, gravity tugging her like a lullaby, coaxing a child from sleep. The supports collapse inward with muffled crashes. Workers shout and wave their hats, but the noise is gentle, respectful even. You watch as she glides down the slipway, silent but for the rush of water and the groan of steel. It's a strange kind of magic, this massive thing built with sweat and fire, now moving like a thought made real. And then the splash, not violent, not loud, just final. A surge of white foam as her hull meets the sea for the first time. She rocks gently, settling into the water with a grace you didn't expect from something so massive. A bird lifts off from the dock, startled, its wings flashing. white against the steel blue sky. The crowd cheers, but it fades quickly. It's not a roar. It's not celebration. It's awe. You let the sound wash over you like a wave. Not crashing, but cradling. The kind of sound that fills you without rattling you. It doesn't demand a reaction. It just is. As the cheers subside, the Titanic is now fully afloat. Tugboats nudge her gently, guiding her away from the slip like nurses escorting a newborn from the delivery room. You can almost hear her breathing now, the way a ship breathes, creaks, soft lapping water, the hush of ropes stretching taut. She isn't finished, not by far. The fitting out still awaits. The rooms, the luxury, the heart of the ship. But she's alive now. She's part of the sea. And the sea, ever patient, ever watching, has accepted her. You walk away from the crowd, past the ropes, past the trampled grass and discarded paper programs. The air smells faintly of champagne and coal. You slip through a side path and find yourself back in the quieter part of the dock, where crates are stacked and pigeons strut with unearned confidence. You find a bench, an old one, splintered, slightly crooked. You sit and exhale slowly. That was something, wasn't it? You think about what it means to launch a ship, to send a piece of human hope sliding into the unknown. We make these things, grand, glittering things, and then we let them go. We tell ourselves they're strong enough, safe enough, right enough. And sometimes they aren't, but we launch them anyway, not because we're foolish, but because we have to. It's part of who we are. You lean back, letting the bench creak under your weight. A soft breeze stirs your hair. Somewhere nearby, a dock worker sings, to himself in a low, tuneless hum, a working man's lullaby. You close your eyes for a moment and let it all blur together. The crowd is gone now. The ship floats in the harbour, quiet again, and the world goes on. But something has changed. The Titanic is no longer a plan, no longer a frame. She's a presence, a story already beginning to be told. And though you know where it leads, you don't feel fear. Not now. There's time yet to walk her halls, to meet her passengers, to feel her engines hum beneath your feet. For now, just rest. Let the sound of gentle waves rock you like a cradle. Let the soft scent of salt and oil ground you. Let your breath slow as the great ship drifts quietly nearby, waiting for the final touches, waiting for her maiden voyage. We'll get there. But first, there's something beautiful in this pause, between creation and departure, between hope and history. Let it hold you for a while longer. Just breathe, sleep if you need. 2. The story will wait for you. A soft fog presses against the Belfast docks this morning. Not thick enough to hide the world, just enough to soften its edges. You feel it brushing your cheeks, cool and damp, carrying the faint scent of coal smoke and polished wood. There's a hush in the air, the kind that usually comes after a snowfall. But this is no winter morning. It's April 1912 now, spring in its early steps. You stretch slowly, feeling the stiffness in your back from the worn bench, and rise. The Titanic floats gently in the harbour beside you, anchored, not idle. There's a quiet energy to her now, like a sleeping giant being dressed for a ball. She doesn't look unfinished anymore. Her black hull gleams beneath its white upper decks, trimmed neatly in gold and riveted steel. 4 tall funnels rise proudly into the sky. Only 3 functional, the 4th added for symmetry and a touch of drama. They tower over the shipyard like monuments to human confidence, or maybe just human style. You step onto a narrow gangway, guided by an invisible permission, and walk across the still water to her starboard side. Your footsteps echo softly against the planks as a light mist curls along the railing. She doesn't feel intimidating now. She feels like a cathedral, not meant to scare, but to inspire. And so you board her for the first time. The moment your boots touch the deck, you notice the silence. Not emptiness, not absence, but the kind of silence that only exists in large waiting places. A breath held, a theatre before the curtain rises. You begin to walk the decks, your hand grazing the clean brass railings. They're still warm from polishing. Everything smells new. Fresh paint, varnished wood, linseed oil. You pass a steward wiping down a window, humming an old Irish tune to himself. He doesn't notice you. Or maybe he does, and simply accepts you as part of the story. The deck boards beneath your feet are tight, smooth golden, Burmese teak laid out with care, each one oiled, sanded, and oiled again. You stop for a moment, look out over the harbour, and take a breath. Salt air mixed with coal, a smell that speaks of departure. Not yet, though. Not quite. Inside, the ship is coming alive. You pass through wide corridors lined with white-painted panelling and dark carpet runners. Workers shuffle past with bundles of linens, brass light fixtures tucked under arms, tools clinking softly from worn belts. No one rushes. This isn't frantic. This is ritual. The final flourishes before a grand unveiling. You step into the first-class dining saloon, and your breath catches. The space opens before you like a palace at sea. Pillars rising to ornate ceilings, crystal chandeliers waiting silently overhead. Long tables are being dressed with fine linens, silverware carefully placed with gloved hands. You notice the sound the forks make. A soft click against porcelain, precise, deliberate. A steward pauses beside one of the chairs, running his fingers along the edge of the velvet upholstery. Then he straightens it just a little, even though no one will sit there today. Perfection, it seems, isn't for the guests. It's for the ship herself. You continue onward, drifting now, room to room, deck to deck. The grand staircase is nearly complete. The oak banisters gleam, carved with flourishes that seem too delicate for the sea. At its centre, a clock waits above the landing, framed by angels in frozen, golden repose. The time isn't set yet, as if the ship doesn't want to begin keeping time until she leaves. You pass into a first-class stateroom, already dressed. Crisp white sheets, a faint smell of lavender soap, a polished writing desk, empty except for a blotter pad and a silver inkstand. You sit for a moment, letting your hands rest on the fabric of the chair, thick velvet cool beneath your palms. You imagine a lady in a wide hat, pen in hand, writing a postcard back home. We sail tomorrow. Everything is divine. You rise and continue on. The Turkish baths feel impossibly luxurious. Tiled walls in deep blues and greens, reclining couches, warm lamps behind etched glass. It feels like a place that exists entirely to forget the outside world. You run your fingers along the tile, smooth, faintly humid. The air smells faintly of eucalyptus and brass polish. Below, the second-class spaces are simpler, but still lovely. Bright, clean cabins. A piano in the common room. Books neatly arranged on shelves. It doesn't feel second-class, not really, just quieter. The furniture is a little plainer, the edges more rounded, but the intent, comfort, dignity is just as present. Even further down, the third-class quarters are being aired out, bunks made, floors scrubbed. Children's laughter echoes from somewhere behind a closed bulkhead. A family playing tag between wooden crates. You catch a glimpse of them as a door swings open. The mother has tied her hair back with a kerchief. The father balances a little boy on his shoulders. They don't look poor, they look hopeful. You step back up to the light, onto the promenade deck, and let the breeze wash over you. There's something strange about this place, something hypnotic. Not just because of its beauty, but because of the illusion it creates. That everything is under control, that perfection has been achieved, that nothing could possibly go wrong. You know, of course, what's coming. But here and now, it's hard to believe in disaster. Not with so much velvet, not with so much wood polish and laughter and humming. You pass by a steward setting out deck chairs. He's muttering under his breath, counting 32, 33, 34. His hands move from chair to chair, straightening each one, as though it matters deeply that they're all in line. Maybe it does. And there, across the deck, you see her again. The ship, not just in parts anymore, but as a whole, massive, graceful, entire. You sit on one of the newly placed deck chairs and let your eyes close for a moment. The sun peeks out from behind a cloud. Warmth spreads across your face. A faint breeze brushes, your fingertips carrying the sounds of rope creaking gently and distant bells from the harbour. Tomorrow, they say, the Titanic will depart. She will carry dreams, and regrets, and music and silence. But tonight, she rests and so do you. Let the hum of the shipyard fade behind you. Let the scent of varnish and fresh linen settle deep into your breath. Let the decks rock gently beneath your imagination. There is still much more to come. Icebergs, yes, but also letters, dinners, lifeboats, laughter, and soft lamplight. All of it, but not now, not yet. For now, you're safe aboard a ship that believes in perfection. Let her carry you, let her lull. You will set sail soon. It's early morning now, April 10th, 1912. The sky is the colour of polished pewter, soft and reflective. Clouds drift slowly across it, as if they too are preparing for something significant. You're standing at the docks in Southampton. The sea is calm today, not still, but peaceful, like it's waiting. The Titanic is here. She arrived in the night, barely disturbing the harbour as she pulled in from Belfast. You'd think something so massive would wake the town just by showing up. But no. She slipped into port quietly, like a gentle visitor who didn't want to knock too loudly. And now she waits, moored with thick ropes, her hull dark and gleaming like a sleeping leviathan. You walk slowly toward her. This is the beginning of the end, but it doesn't feel like it It feels like a celebration. There's a pulse to the air, quiet, contained but full. Passengers are gathering now. Steamer trunks thump gently against the docks. Porters shout names and cabin numbers, their voices echoing off the brick walls. Of the White Star Line offices, there's laughter and nervous fidgeting and the rustle of stiff new clothes. You stop for a moment just at the edge of the crowd. A little girl in a starched pinafore clutches a cloth rabbit with one hand and her mother's dress with the other. Her curls bounce as she walks. A group of young men in flat caps trade teasing insults, but their eyes dart toward the ship every few seconds, hungry with wonder. And then there are the first-class passengers, arriving by carriage and car, stepping onto the dock with soft grace and stiff collars. A lady lifts her skirt delicately above a puddle. A gentleman checks his pocket watch, as if time must bow to him before continuing. You watch them, fascinated not by their glamour, but by their belief. They think they know what awaits them. No one ever does. You drift through the crowd unnoticed, like fog through a fence. Someone hands you a boarding card. It's warm from their hand, the paper thick and textured like a pressed flower. Cabin C55. You slide it into your pocket and smile faintly. You won't need it, of course. You're not really here, or maybe you are. You board quietly, ascending the gangway as if walking into a book you've read a dozen times. The deck is bustling. Stewards in crisp uniforms direct passengers with professional ease. Staterooms to the left, smoking lounge aft. Baggage will be delivered shortly. Their voices are low, calming but efficient, trained to reassure. You move with the current, past the polished railings, the stacks of wicker luggage, the endless glint of brass and steel. The Titanic hums around you, not loudly, just a vibration, a low, steady readiness. Below deck, in the bowels of the ship, stokers are feeding the furnaces. The engine room glows orange with firelight, the great pistons slowly starting to churn. Coal dust floats in the air like ash from a dream. Men work in sweat and rhythm, their shirts clinging to their backs, their movements synchronized like the lungs of a breathing beast. You feel the shift, the ropes are loosening, the crowd on shore leans forward. Children climb onto crates, handkerchiefs appear in gloved hands, and then she moves, not quickly, not dramatically, just a nudge, a whisper of momentum. Tugboats strain gently at her sides, guiding her away from the quay. The gap between ship and shore widens like a held breath. You hear gasps. A cheer starts and fades. People aren't sure what to feel, or fear disguised as excitement. You lean on the railing. The shore drifts away. You're not alone here. A young couple stands nearby, the man pointing out landmarks to the woman beside him. She nods, smiling, but never really looks, her eyes fixed on the water below, lost in thoughts she hasn't shared. Further down the deck, a boy presses his nose to the glass of a promenade window, watching the sea bloom beneath him. Southampton grows smaller behind you. The buildings blur, the smokestacks become ghosts, and then, just see, the Titanic is at sea. You walk the deck slowly, the cold wind tangling your hair. You pass lifeboats, lashed tight with thick ropes. You count them without meaning to. You already know it's not enough. But the passengers don't. They're too busy exploring. Below, second-class passengers begin to gather in their shared dining rooms. Conversations bloom in a dozen accents. Welsh, Irish, American, Swedish. There's a sense of adventure here. New lives, new worlds. Everything is forward-facing, and below them, third class. You step into the narrow corridors. Wood floors, clean but spare. Rooms full of bunk beds and laughter. Someone strums a fiddle somewhere near the stern. Children run barefoot past you, chased by a young mother with a flushed face and a tolerant smile. You sit on a bench as the ship glides onward. Hours pass like drifting clouds. By late afternoon, you're approaching Cherbourg, France. From a distance, it's hard to make out the town, but the tenders are already waiting. The Titanic is too large to dock, so smaller ships ferry passengers to and from her sides. You watch them arrive, more well-dressed men and women, stepping delicately aboard as if the sea itself has been rolled out like a carpet for them. Among them, John Jacob Astor IV, Isidore and Ida Strauss, Molly Brown, names that will echo through history like the soft ring of a bell long after they're gone. But here and now, they're just travellers, smiling, nodding, unaware. As night falls, you head back toward the deck. The lights are on now, 1,000 of them. Warm, golden glows behind glass windows. The sea reflects them like stars, scattered. Beneath you, you sit at the very edge of the ship, the wind playing with the edges of your coat. The engines thrum gently below. Not loud, just a comforting rhythm. Like a heart, steady, assured. You watch the water. It stretches endlessly forward. There is no iceberg, not yet. There is only motion and hope, and that strange fluttering, feeling in the chest that comes when something big has begun. You let your eyes close. You are afloat now, not just on the Atlantic, but on the story itself. Let it carry you. Let the creak of the ship, the hush of the sea, the distant echoes of laughter and footsteps guide you further into rest. There is more to come. Cork, then the deep sea, then the still night. We'll get there. But for now, sleep in the arms of the greatest ship the world had ever seen. She is still unsinkable, still beloved, still whole, and you are part of her. You wake to the sound of water. Not crashing waves or stormy winds. Nothing so dramatic. Just the soft hush of the ocean slipping past the hull, like silk drawn across polished wood. Rhythmic, gentle. The Titanic moves forward, and so do you. It's the second full day at sea. April 11th is already behind you. Queenstown, or Cove, as the Irish call it, faded into the morning mist as quickly as it appeared. The last stop before the open ocean. A few dozen more passengers came aboard, climbing up the gangways from the tenders like dreamers boarding, a staircase in the sky. Some waved farewell to family still on the dock. Others didn't look back. Now, all of that is gone. Only the Atlantic remains. You step out onto the promenade deck, and the light takes you by surprise. It's not bright, not in that glaring high sun way, but soft and golden, like butter spread thin across the sky. The wind is brisk but playful. You pull your coat closer, and the salt air tickles your nose. Around you, life is unfolding, First-class passengers stroll past in twos and threes, gloved hands looped together, laughter floating behind them like perfume. You pass a woman in a wide-brimmed hat, struggling with a silk scarf that refuses to stay tied. She curses softly under her breath, then smiles when she notices you watching. "Ridiculous wind," she says, positively determined to ruin me. You nod and move on, leaving her to her fluttering battle. Further down the deck, an elderly gentleman puffs on a cigar, leaning into the railing with the practiced ease of someone who knows he will never fall. His eyes are on the horizon, but they don't seem to be searching for land, just watching. Below, in second class, a game of shuffleboard is already underway. The players are serious, not competitively so, just determined to win by at least a little. You watch them from above for a moment as the puck glides smoothly across the deck, and someone cheers half-heartedly at a good shot. You wander. You find yourself in the reading and writing room, where the quiet is deeper than elsewhere. Sunlight filters through tall windows. A woman writes with a fountain pen at a polished desk, her brow furrowed. You imagine her letter. "The sea is calm today. Almost too calm, if that's possible." A steward brings tea to a small table by the window, placing the silver tray down with such care you hardly hear it touch the wood. You nod to him as you pass, and he nods back without a word. Eventually, you slip below, past the grand staircase, where the clock still stands proudly, the figures of honour and glory crowning time, glowing faintly in the lamplight. You drift downward through the tiers of the ship, each one changing not just in decor, but in spirit. The second-class dining room is quieter now. Breakfast is long past, lunch still a few hours away. You run your fingers along a linen-draped table, clean, simple, everything set just so. Someone left behind a spoon, resting alone like a forgotten memory, and further down, the third-class general room. There's life here, voices, music. You step inside and hear the distinct twang of a fiddle. A man sits on a crate, foot tapping, coaxing joy from strings worn smooth by years of calluses. Children laugh and spin nearby, their shoes scuffing, the floor with uneven rhythm. A mother claps gently along, her sleeves rolled up, her cheeks pink from laughter. This isn't luxury. It's liveliness. You sit for a while, unnoticed in the corner, letting the sound wrap around you like a handmade quilt. The room smells of soap, coal smoke, and worn leather. Lives in transit. Not passengers, people. Going somewhere they've never seen but always imagined. Hours drift by like the clouds above the ship. You explore a little more, down corridors, lined with polished brass lamps, into the Marconi room, where wireless operators sit with headphones pressed tight, scribbling coded messages on long slips of paper. Sparks crackle faintly. Dials turn with quiet precision. There are voices out there, other ships, other lives, but they sound distant, like echoes through a cave. One of the operators sets down his pencil, stretches and rubs his eyes. "More greetings from London," he mutters. "Can't imagine anyone in New York cares what Lady So-and-so had for breakfast." You smile and slip back into the shadows of the hallway. Outside, evening is approaching. The ship's shadow grows longer over the waves. The sky begins its slow transformation from pearl to amber to violet. You return to the deck and lean once, more on the railing, watching the sea shift beneath you. You can't see land anymore, just water in every direction, deep, endless, unknowable. There's something soothing about that. No borders, no interruptions, just motion. You think of the passengers again, Mr. Andrews walking the ship at dusk, checking details with quiet hands. Molly Brown chuckling in the lounge as she outwits another gentleman at cards. The Astors walking their dog along the deck. Little kids in third class, watching the waves and wondering if whales will surface before bedtime. They don't know, but neither do you, and so you simply are. Aboard the Titanic, surrounded by wood and steel and light, listening to the heartbeat of history from the inside. The engines hum, the sea sighs, a bell rings somewhere forward. You feel it more than hear it. You sit in a deck chair and close your eyes. The wind plays with your hair. The air smells like coal and seaweed and metal and something else. Anticipation. There are 2 more days until the collision. But that doesn't matter now. This is the quiet middle. The drifting moment between beginnings and endings. Let yourself float here. Let the soft rocking of the ship soothe you. Let the echo of laughter and the hum of engines become your lullaby. You're safe. The ship is whole. The sea is calm. Sleep, if you like. The story will. Wait. You wake slowly. Not because something startles you, but because the ship has stilled even more somehow. If that's possible. It's April 14th now. Sunday. The final full day before everything changes. But that hasn't happened yet. The world is still whole. You sit up in your cabin. There's a low creaking in the wood above you, like the gentle sigh of a contented house in the early morning. The Titanic is cruising smoothly, cutting through the Atlantic with practiced grace. You can feel her moving, yes, but not in a way that disturbs. It's more like floating inside a long, slow breath. The light filtering through the curtains is pale and watery. Not dim, not overcast, just muted. Like the sky is thinking something over. A blue-lidded hush lies over everything. You take your time dressing. The room is cool but pleasant. The air smells faintly of salt, linseed oil, and clean cotton. As you pull on your jacket, you catch your reflection in the mirror. Slightly rumpled, half dreaming, completely at peace. You open the door and step out onto the corridor. There's a quietness in the ship today. Not absence, not emptiness, but a kind of stillness you feel more than hear, like the entire vessel is holding its breath. You wander slowly, down the passageways, through sunlight pooling on warm rugs, into gentle voices rising and falling around corners. It's Sunday, and the ship knows it. You reach the first-class lounge, where sunlight pours through stained glass windows, turning the walls into painted honey. Passengers are scattered about with books and newspapers, furs draped over chairs, cups of tea balanced on saucers like tiny ceremonies. Everything is soft, controlled. At one table, a man dozes in a leather armchair, his book slipping from his lap. At another, a pair of older ladies exchange quiet gossip over embroidery hoops. The needle darts in and out of cloth, whispering rhythmically. You don't know the language, but the tone is universal. The comfortable hum of idle peace. pass through the reading and writing room again. A young woman writes a letter, her head bent low, curls brushing her cheek. Her pen scratches softly across the paper. "We've never been so far from home," you imagine her writing. "And yet, I've never felt safer." You nod and move. Entrant in the dining saloon. Tables are being reset for luncheon. Waiters move in practiced silence, placing silver and china with precise grace. You catch a whiff of something. Roast chicken, perhaps, or beef consommé. Rich and soothing. The kind of food that comforts without overwhelming. The kind of meal that assumes you have nowhere urgent to be. And of course, no one does. You drift further down. In second class, families are gathered for a modest Sunday service. Hymns are sung in quiet tones, reverberating off the wood-panelled walls like distant lullabies. A baby fusses, is gently rocked. Someone sneezes. A little girl drops her hymn book, and her brother scrambles to pick it up before anyone notices. It's not a cathedral, but it is enough. You pass into third class. It's brighter here, less ornate, but full of life. Young men gather in corners, sharing stories, laughter, secrets. An older woman stirs a pot of stew near a vent, humming a tune you don't recognize, but feel you've always known. The children are quieter today. Maybe the sea has hushed even them. You lean against the wall and just listen. The ship is alive, full of small human things, threaded moments. You feel the ocean, always, just beyond the walls, a cold and ancient presence. But not menacing, not yet, just present. Eventually, you find your way back up to the promenade deck. The air is colder now, sharper. The wind has turned and carries with it a new kind of chill. Not bitter, not biting, but clear, bracing. You wrap your coat a little tighter. You look out across the water. It's startlingly calm, flat as glass, unbroken. A sea so still, it reflects the sky in perfect silence, as though the world has been paused. Passengers are noticing. A man beside you taps the rail gently and says to no one in particular, "I've never seen the Atlantic like this." You don't respond. You don't need to. He's not really talking to you. He's talking to the sea. Time passes. Hours shift. Evening approaches. You're invited, or rather, drift into, a first-class dinner. The saloon is warm with golden light. Waiters glide like clockwork. Glasses chime delicately. People laugh. Too loudly, perhaps, to fill the space. You sit near a potted fern and watch the asters dine with quiet elegance. Molly Brown tells a story at another table. It's a funny one, judging by the ripple of laughter. Someone mentions how mild the crossing has been. Another nods, noting the speed. You listen. Someone else wonders aloud why they've seen no ice. You sip your tea. The meal ends. The ship is moving faster now, nearly top speed. Captain Smith's last command was to press on. After all, the weather is clear, the sea smooth, and everyone wants to arrive in New York ahead of schedule. A final victory for his career. You feel the change in the rhythm of the ship, a slightly deeper vibration underfoot. It doesn't worry you. It's like a horse stretching its legs for the final mile. You walk out into the night and stop, because this isn't night, not really. This is something else. The sky is full of stars. Not just scattered pinpricks, but crowds of them, galaxies, rivers of light. The moon hangs low and golden behind the ship's funnels. The sea reflects it all so perfectly that you can't tell where sky ends and ocean begins. It's dizzying and absolutely still. No wind, no waves, just silence. So complete you can hear your own breath. You wander again, this time toward the bow. No one else is here, just you and the ship and the stars and the ice. Yes, you see it now, tiny shards beginning to form along the rail. A fine frost creeping up the brass. The air colder than you realized. You press your hand to the railing. The metal bites gently, and far, far ahead. Something waits, but not yet, for now. Everything is suspended. The ship is gliding forward, unbothered, unhurried, unaware. And you are gliding with her, wrapped in silence. Cradled by steel, held by stars. Let yourself rest here. The world will change soon, but not now. Now, you are safe in a moment that believes in itself. Let the stillness hold you. Let the cold air sharpen your dreams. Let the hush of the Atlantic settle into your breath. We're nearly there. But first, sleep. The night is still, still in a way that doesn't feel natural. Still in a way that almost warns you. It's late now, just past 11:30 p.m. ship's time. April 14th, Sunday melting slowly into Monday. The moon has disappeared behind thin clouds, but the stars are still there. Endless, cold, curious. You're standing once again at the bow. The rail under your hands chilled with frost. The air has changed. It's thinner, crisper. Your breath rises like smoke, curling upward before disappearing into the blackness above. You feel the ship beneath your feet, humming softly. Alive, comfortable, unaware. Below you, the ocean lies flat and calm. No swell. No roll, just an endless pane of midnight glass stretching in all directions. The kind of sea that whispers false promises. You can't see it yet, but you sense it. Something's coming. And then it happens. Not a jolt, not an explosion, not even a splash. Just a strange muted shudder. Like a giant exhaling sharply in its sleep. A faint grinding hum beneath your boots. The ship stirs, shifts, a movement that passes through her from bow to stern like a forgotten thought. You blink. Wait, nothing more. She keeps moving. You glance over the rail, half expecting to see something. A fin, a spray, a wound. But there's only darkness and silence. A few seconds later, someone steps onto the deck behind you. A steward, perhaps, or a passenger stretching his legs. He pauses, looks over the side. You say nothing. He says nothing. But the question is there between you. Did you feel that? And even more pressing, what was it? You wander slowly towards the grand staircase. The corridors feel different now. Not immediately, not obviously, but subtly. The laughter has faded. The music has stopped. Voices are quieter. Footsteps softer. Below deck, the change is even more pronounced. You pass a steward knocking gently on cabin doors. Just a precaution, he tells a drowsy gentleman in striped pajamas. Nothing to worry about. We've stopped temporarily. you pass a group of third-class passengers, a family, still half asleep. The mother has a baby in her arms, the father tugging on boots. Their children look up at you with wide eyes, unsure if this is an adventure or a punishment. You don't answer them. You simply keep moving, down through the ship, toward the truth. In the Marconi room, the wireless operators are suddenly busy, very busy. Coded taps echo off the metal walls like Morse-shaped lightning. Sparks fly. The lead operator leans forward, his brow furrowed. He's sending out a call you've never heard before. Not CQD, which means distress, but something new, something created for moments just like this, SOS, the first time it's ever used in real life. It feels heavy, not dramatic, not loud, just real. You move again, past the engine rooms, past the boiler rooms. You see crewmen now with worry in their eyes, checking bulkheads, running fingers along rivets, tapping on cold steel with knuckles they already know the ship has been torn open below the waterline. Not at a great gash, but a series of cuts. 5 compartments breached, like holes in the lung of a living thing. The water is coming in faster than it should, faster than it can be stopped, and the Titanic, for all her size and strength and glory, was never built to float after this. You return to the upper decks. The stars above you are still bright, as if none of this concerns them. The ocean around you is still calm, still beautiful, but you feel the urgency growing. Not panic yet, just movement. The pace of the stewards quickens, orders are murmured, lights flicker briefly. The lifeboats are being uncovered. You count them again. Too few, only enough for about half the people aboard. You move among the passengers. Some are confused, wrapping scarves over dressing gowns, asking if this is just a drill some joke. Nothing to worry about, one man says, holding a cigarette that trembles slightly between his fingers. We've just kissed an iceberg goodnight. Others are quiet. A young man stands at the rail with a small notebook, sketching the moonlight on the sea as if it's the last beautiful thing he'll ever see. And maybe it is. You walk past a lifeboat as it's being readied. A mother climbs in, clutching her child like a second heart. Her husband stays behind. She reaches for him, lips trembling, but he simply smiles. "You'll see me again soon," he says. He knows, she knows too, but they lie to each other kindly. Further, down the deck a few musicians are gathering their instruments. They tune quietly, without being told. The bandleader lifts his bow, looks to the others, and begins to play. The song is soft, familiar. Nearer, my God, to thee. Not dramatic, just tender. The notes carry through the cold air like breath. You follow them to the stern, past the unfolding tragedy, past the rising voices, past the clanging lifeboat davits and the shouted orders. You sit on a bench, hands in your lap, and you listen. You feel the ship beneath you, still gliding forward slightly. Not screaming, not groaning, just sinking. Quietly, elegantly, tragically. You look up at the sky again. The stars have not moved. The universe has not changed, and yet everything has. You close your eyes. You know what comes next. But for now, just for now, let the music hold you. Let the quiet wrap around your shoulders like a soft blanket. Let the cold sharpen your breath, and the wood beneath you warm your palms. This is not the end. Not yet. Let time slow here, on the deck of the unsinkable ship, where the sea is flat, the stars are bright, and history is still deciding what it will become. Sleep, if you can. The ship is still afloat. For now. The night has deepened now. It is past 2 a.m. The stars above you still shimmer like scattered frost, undisturbed by the quiet unraveling below. The sea remains eerily still, reflecting their light back to the heavens, as if offering them a mirror. You are standing near the stern. The Titanic is no longer horizontal. She's tilting now, not dramatically, but perceptibly. The deck beneath your feet is angled just slightly toward the bow, like a slowly sinking cathedral. You feel it in your knees, in your balance. The slope is steady and worsening. You hear the creak of steel deep in her spine. You listen. The sound isn't violent. Not yet. It's more like an old tree adjusting its roots. Ancient, reluctant, resigned. You walk slowly up the slanting deck, past chairs that now slide gently toward the bow, past a steward, silent and pale, helping an elderly man fasten his life jacket, fingers trembling not with fear, but with effort, past an open stateroom door. The bed neatly made, a silver brush and mirror still sitting atop the vanity. Frozen in time. Forgotten. You reach the boat deck again. Most of the lifeboats are gone. Now, some still linger. The last ones. There are voices calling for women and children. A man pleads to stay with his wife. Another refuses to leave without his dog. A few lifeboats drift below in the blackness. Flickering oil lamps inside them cast halos of light on the water, like stars that have fallen and chosen to float. The ship is higher at the stern now. You can feel the pull. Inside the grand staircase, water has begun to rise. It's not a tidal wave, not a rush. It's slow, inevitable. The glass dome above the staircase, once brilliant with sunlight, now frames only stars, and soon nothing at all. The banisters gleam wet in the lamplight as water laps higher, brushing each step like a reverent hand. You pause there a moment, listen to the hush, and then move on. Upward, the tilt has increased. You step carefully now, slowly. As you pass one hallway, you see Thomas Andrews, the ship's architect. He is helping passengers with coats, speaking gently, calmly. You hear him say, "Ladies, you must get what you can and come on deck." She is torn to bits below, but she will not sink if her after bulkhead holds. But even he doesn't quite believe it anymore. You continue to the stern. This is where the final gathering begins. People cluster together now, not running, not screaming, just standing, holding hands, holding breaths, waiting. The music continues, not on a stage, not loudly, just there. A hymn, a waltz, a memory, and then the lights flicker once, just a heartbeat, and go out. Darkness wraps around you. For a moment, the sea, the sky, and the ship are all one. Then a sound, a groan from deep within. A crack, you feel it more than hear it. Like the spine of the world has bent too far. The ship begins to break. Slowly, almost politely. You see the front of the Titanic dip forward. The stern lifts. Water pours in faster now, as if it has waited long enough. There is no panic. Not here, not with you, just stillness. A shared silence. A man near you removes his hat, as though entering a sacred place. You close your eyes, the stern tilts skyward, gently, majestically, like the Titanic is pointing towards something above, something greater than herself. She rises until the angle is too much, and then she goes, not in a rush, but in surrender. She slips below, quietly, proudly, completely. And then only the ocean. You're no longer aboard. You're above now, hovering just above the sea, floating without weight. You look down. No wreckage. Not yet. No screaming. No flailing. Only the slow ripple of waves reclaiming their shape. Only the soft bob of lifeboats. Only silence. You drift higher. The stars greet you like old friends. You let them. The Titanic is gone now. But she's not lost. It's down there. Whole in memory, eternal in story. You carry her with you now. Every polished doorknob, every creaking stair, every face that passed by you on the deck, unaware of what was to come. Every laugh, every letter, every hymn in the dark, all of it stored gently inside you like treasures in a locked drawer. You breathe slowly, the air is still cool, still calm. Let yourself float here, above time, above sorrow, above sound. Let the ocean be your cradle now. Let the story sink into rest, just as the ship has. She is at peace now, and so are you. The voyage is over. The dream has ended, but sleep carries on. Let yourself drift, not into the ocean, but into dreams. Safe, warm, still. Good night, dear ship. Good night, passengers. Good night, stars. Good night. You step through the thick hide curtain that marks the entrance to the longhouse. It gives way with a quiet shudder, brushing against your shoulder like a heavy, breathing animal. Behind you, the wind immediately dies, shut out by logs and layers of moss and clay packed into every crevice. The quiet hits you like a warm cloth pressed over your ears. You hadn't realized how loud the winter wind had been until it wasn't there anymore. Inside, the air is warmer, yes, but not exactly warm. It's still cool enough to make your nose tingle and your fingers itch, but it's a relief all the same. A smoky haze drifts lazily through the space, catching on the low beams overhead. It curls in the dim light like a ghost, trying to find the ceiling. The fire in the center burns low but steady, its heat slowly soaking into your boots, your legs, your ribs. You breathe in deep, and it smells like everything at once. Soot, sweat, damp wool, burned fat, and something sour you choose not to investigate too closely. Your eyes adjust to the murk. The longhouse is deeper than it looks from outside, stretching past the flickering firelight into low shadows at the far end. Along the walls, people are already curled up, their outlines bundled in thick furs and old cloaks. Some are asleep, some are staring into nothing. Some are murmuring to each other in voices just above a whisper. The whole room seems to sway gently with the rhythm of the flames and breath. You shrug off your outer cloak, brushing away the snow that had gathered at the edges. It falls to the floor in clumps, melting slowly into the packed earth. A woman near the fire glances at you and pats a fur-covered bench. You nod, thanking her without a word, and settle down, your weight easing into the thick pelts that cover the wooden slats. You let your hands drift out toward the warmth. The The backs of your knuckles are raw from the cold. Tiny white cracks scattered across your skin like frostbite freckles. The heat stings at first, then soothes. You sit back and let the silence around you stretch. It's not complete silence, not really. There's the pop and hiss of the fire, the quiet shifting of bodies, the occasional cough, the low creak of wood that's seen too many winters. But it's a restful silence, one that doesn't demand anything from you. Somewhere nearby, someone's stirring a pot. You hear the wooden spoon scrape along the bottom of the kettle. The smell of barley porridge drifts your way, thick and dull, but comforting in its own modest way. You feel your stomach grumble, and you make a mental note to grab a bowl before the kids get to it. They always seem to find the parts with butter. The roof above you is sloped and dark, its beams layered with soot and old straw. A small hole has been cut near the centre to let the smoke escape, but it does a poor job of it. Still, it's better than nothing. Every few minutes, a breeze finds its way through, just enough to stir the haze like someone shaking a blanket. In slow motion, you lean back against the post behind you and let your muscles go soft. The world has narrowed to this room, this fire, this night. This is winter, and you are inside it. The days are short now, barely more than a blink of grey light that fades before it can fully arrive. Most people have stopped bothering to track them. What's the point? Morning and night blur together in a stretch of sleep, stew and silence. The animals are stabled, the boats pulled up from the shore. The fields are buried beneath crusted snow. Even the streams seem to move more slowly. The world is paused, you too, and in this place the longhouse becomes everything. Kitchen, bedroom, story circle, refuge. It smells like old wood and new feet, like stew and smoke and breath. It smells like home, even if it isn't yours. Someone nearby snores, just a soft start-stop rhythm, like a dog dreaming of rabbits. A child giggles quietly. Another one shushes them. Then quiet again. You shift to your side and tug the nearest fur around your shoulder. It's heavy and a little damp. The hairs tickle your nose. Somewhere inside the pelt is a smell you can't place. Goat? Horse? Time? It doesn't matter. It's warm. You let your thoughts wander, slow and pointless. The way the flame flickers in a crooked pattern. The way your sock is twisted slightly at the heel. The way the man across from you has one eyebrow higher than the other, even in sleep. Nothing urgent, just your brain gently scratching at the walls of quiet. Someone begins humming near the fire. It's not a tune you recognize, just a rise and fall of sound, soft as breathing. Others join in, barely audible. Not in harmony, not in rhythm, but together, in a loose sort of way. It's not a performance, it's a habit. A sound passed from one long winter to the next. You close your eyes for a bit, just to rest them. And when you open them again, the fire has burned lower, but it's still alive. Someone must have added a log. Maybe it was you. Maybe you dreamed it. Either way, it burns. Your body is still now, but your mind wanders the corners of the room. You picture the walls beyond the darkness, carved wood panels telling stories in looping lines. Warriors, ships, trees, birds. None of it accurate. None of it needs to be. Your breath moves slowly in and out. rising in soft clouds that catch the faint light before disappearing. You wonder how many winters this longhouse has held. How many people have sat just like you, half asleep and bundled in fur, waiting for the cold to leave. A story begins. Someone's voice cuts through the hush, not loudly, just clearly. It's in Old Norse, though not formal, not recited, more like remembered. The words don't matter. The voice is gravelly and warm, like a blanket for your thoughts. You follow the rise and fall, the pauses, the shifts in tone. You picture a fox slipping across the snow, a woman weaving near the fire, a boy who forgets to close the barn and loses the cow, then spends the whole winter thinking the cow is out there somewhere, just slightly smarter than he is. You almost smile. You pull the fur tighter and turn your head toward the fire again. There's nothing to do now but sleep, or drift, or just lie still. That's how the Vikings survived the winter. Not by outrunning it, not by conquering it, but by sharing it. Sleeping close, telling stories, stirring stew, humming under the smoke-dark rafters until the snow melted and time returned. You are part of that now. The snow will fall whether you worry or not. The fire will burn whether you watch it or not. And right now, you don't have to do anything at all. Just be still. Just breathe. Just rest. The fire is crackling again. Not loud, not wild, just enough. You open your eyes, but only part way. It's hard to tell how much time has passed. An hour? A whole night? Maybe just a very long dream. But the light filtering through the smoke. Whole is different now. Softer, slightly paler. Like dawn that forgot to arrive all the way. Your body aches in the quiet, familiar way that comes with sleeping on furs laid over hardened earth. You stretch slowly, like a cat half waking from a nap, toes flexing inside their wrap of wool and hide. Your joints pop, not sharply, but like old wooden hinges. It feels good in a sleepy sort of way. You're still warm, still wrapped in a cocoon of rough fur that smells of long-gone animals and long-settled dust. People are stirring around you. The longhouse hums with low motion. Quiet voices, cloth shifting, the occasional cough. It's a kind of ritual, this gentle re-entry into waking. No one leaps to action. There's no morning bell, no loud whistle, no cheerful calls to rise. Just a slow unfolding. A silent agreement that another day has come, though no one knows exactly when or how. You sit up and pull the hide from your shoulders. Cold air rushes in to greet your neck and fingers, and you shiver. You rub warmth into your arms, knowing it won't do much, but the gesture helps. Everything feels heavy this morning. Your limbs, your breath, even your thoughts, as if the cold has settled not just into the walls, but into your bones. You shuffle to the edge of the bench and plant your feet firmly on the dirt floor. It's cold against your soles, even through layers. You stand slowly, joints complaining, again, and reach for your cloak. It's stiff and damp at the edges. You wrap it around yourself anyway. Someone near the fire offers you a nod. That's enough. Words are spare in the early moments. Breath is visible in the air, swirling gently toward the thatched roof above, where it mingles with the ever-present smoke. You step toward the hearth. The logs are newly arranged, the embers fed. You crouch low, hands out, letting the heat soak into your fingers. The fire pops once, sharp and sudden, but no one flinches. You watch as resin bubbles from a log, glowing like amber before it, vanishes into the flame. A pot hangs from a soot-blackened hook above the coals. Something simmers inside. You hope it's oats, or barley, or even leftover stew. It doesn't matter much. Anything hot will do. The woman tending the pot stirs it with a wooden spoon. Her eyes are still puffy from sleep, her braid frayed and lopsided. She doesn't speak, but she offers you the ladle. You nod, take a scoop, and pour it into a small charred bowl. It smells earthy and faintly sweet. You blow on it, watching, the steam rise in lazy spirals. You settle cross-legged on a fur beside the fire, cradling the bowl in both hands. Your breath mingles with the steam. The first sip burns your tongue just slightly, but it wakes you up. Sort of. The warmth moves down into your belly like a coal tucked under your ribs. Across the room, a boy is trying to fit a shoe onto the wrong foot. He doesn't seem to notice. Someone else chuckles and flips it around for him without a word. He shrugs and keeps going. The longhouse is waking like a great animal, slow and jointed, stretching limbs and sniffing the air, deciding whether it's worth standing all the way up today. The cold outside scratches at the walls. You can hear it, a gentle hiss like icy fingers dragging across bark and bone. But in here, you're safe. Not warm exactly, but warmer than you'd be out there. A few people begin dressing for the outdoors. Fur cloaks, mittens made from stitched hide, woolen scarves wrapped high over cheeks and ears. One woman carefully fits a leather hood over her braid, pulling it snug beneath her chin. Her eyes are sharp, alert. She's one of the hunters. Or maybe just someone who needs to check the food stores. You decide to join her, just for a moment, for air, for change. You step out into the lightless morning, the hide curtain falling closed behind you with a quiet thump. And instantly, the cold reaches you. It grabs your nose first, then your ears, then your teeth. If your mouth opens for too long, you pull your cloak tighter around you. It doesn't help much. The world is white and grey. Snow clings to the edges of the longhouse, packed tight from weeks of drifts and reshaping. The sky is a thick, colourless sheet stretched low above the earth. No sun, just a brighter kind of darkness. Your boots crunch over ice-hardened snow. Each step echoes in the stillness. The air smells like wood smoke, distant pine and frozen air. It has a taste, too. Dry, pure, almost metallic. The hunter kneels near a woodpile, checking for dry kindling beneath a tarp of stitched skins. Her breath hangs around her face like a fog. She works methodically, brushing frost from the logs and stacking them in her arms. She doesn't speak. Neither do you. It's not a quiet that feels empty. It's a quiet that holds something. Like the forest is listening. You glance toward the edge of the clearing, where the tree line begins. Black trunks wrapped in white. No birds, no movement. Just stillness. A fox probably passed through last night. You can see faint tracks, sharp little points. The foxes are clever in winter. They find the gaps in the wind. They sleep deep and move only when they must. You and the hunter return to the longhouse. with the wood. She adds it to the growing pile inside, near the hearth. You hang your cloak near the fire to dry, careful not to let it touch the flames. A few others are awake now. One man scrapes a dull blade against a whetstone in slow, steady strokes. Another patches a tear in his tunic with a needle thick as your thumb. The children sit in a circle, poking at something in the dirt. A bone, maybe, or a rock with a funny shape. You lie back against your fur again, tucking your legs up under the blanket. You're not sleepy exactly, but your body wants stillness. Your hands settle over your stomach. You breathe in deep. There's no rush. The sun won't rise much today, and it'll fall again before it finishes stretching. Someone starts telling a story again, this time in a voice you recognize. One of the older men with a sharp laugh and a crooked nose. His tales tend to lean toward exaggeration. You let the words wash over you anyway. He talks of a man who once caught a fish, the size of a boat, only to lose it to a jealous seal, of a cow that gave birth in a snowstorm and tried to nurse all the chickens. The children giggle. The adults shake their heads without correcting him. The story isn't for accuracy. It's for warmth. That's what stories are in the winter. You feel your body growing heavier again. Not tired, just calm. Loose in your skin. The fire is steady now. The stew is finished. The chores are done, or postponed. Time doesn't move forward so much as it folds in on itself. And once again, you let yourself slip into rest. Not because it's bedtime, not because there's a reason, but because this is what winter is for. To pause, to wrap yourself in stillness, to listen, to breathe. And when the snow sighs outside, and the rafters creak, and the fire cracks, you don't answer. You just lie quietly, part of the longhouse, part of the story, part of the season. You aren't sure what time it is now. There's no clear sunrise, no bell or rooster or chime to mark the hours. Just the subtle shift in light, the kind that barely changes the colour of the walls, like someone adjusting the wick on a lamp too, gently to notice. But something in your body tells you it's later, or maybe earlier, or just winter still. You sit half upright, wrapped in your cloak, back pressed to the wall of the longhouse. It's warm against your shoulder, not from heat, but from the gathered breath of a dozen sleeping bodies and the slowly fading fire. One of your feet has gone slightly numb. You shift your leg, gently thumping it against the floor to bring back the blood. The tingling hurts, then settles. Across the hearth, a young boy is poking the ashes with a stick. Not aggressively, not with any real goal. Just the absent kind of poking that children do when the world around them is too quiet for too long. Sparks leap into the air like tiny fireflies, then vanish before they land. His mother notices and gently removes the stick from his hand. She doesn't scold. She just hands him a smoother one to whittle. It's not really a place for loudness. The longhouse holds sound like snow holds footprints. Everything that happens here lingers, echoes quietly, then sinks into the walls. Someone offers you a drink. You didn't see who, but now there's a wooden cup in your hand, half full of warm mead or maybe diluted ale. You lift it slowly, smelling smoke and honey and something slightly sharp. You sip carefully. The warmth spreads quickly, pooling in your chest like the coals in the hearth. Not a fire, just a glow. There's a strange comfort in not having much to do. In summer, everything is a task. Fish to dry, boats to mend, hay to cut and stack before the rain. In winter, the world asks very little. Just patience and silence, and maybe a story or two. A man across from you begins to braid his own beard. It's already split into 2 thick ropes, but he starts from scratch, loosening the strands with his fingers, tugging gently at the knots. He hums as he works, a quiet, tuneless murmur, the sound of fingers working through memory. When he finishes one side, he ties it off with a bit of leather and begins again with the other. He never looks up. The smell of smoke is stronger now. Not new smoke, but the settled kind. The kind that seeps into every cloak, every strand of hair, every thought. You've started to recognize it as the smell of winter itself. Your fingers are cold again. You tuck them into your sleeves and curl inward slightly, chin resting on your chest. No one speaks. Not for a long time. You begin to think in fragments, not sentences, just half-thoughts, a flicker of something, a memory of the stream in summer, where the water ran cold but clear, the crunch of moss under your boots, the way the wind pushed through the valley like a sigh. Your eyes close again, not on purpose. They just do, and time passes, or it doesn't. It might still be the same moment, just stretched. When you open your eyes again, you're lying down. You don't remember moving. The fur is over you, heavy and slightly damp. Someone added more wood to the fire. You hear it now, more confident than before. The pops and cracks are rhythmic, soothing, like someone gently knocking at a door you don't need to answer. You roll to your side, facing the wall. It's rough-hewn, the logs uneven. Bits of moss peek through the gaps, stuffed in tight too, keep the wind from whistling through. Your fingers drift along the grain of the wood. You imagine how many winters it has seen. How many hands have leaned here, tired or trembling, or simply still. The sounds in the longhouse have changed again. Few are snoring. One person mumbles in their sleep. Someone is whispering just out of reach, telling a story maybe, or praying. You can't make out the words, but the tone is soft, reassuring. The way someone might speak to a child who's just woken from a dream. You drift somewhere just beneath sleep. Your thoughts soften. You remember the way your mother used to fold blankets at the end of the bed. The sound of wool brushing against itself. The way her hands would pause, just briefly, when she thought no one was watching. You wonder what she would have thought of this place. Not the cold. That part she'd hate. But the rhythm, the quiet, the sense that nothing here needs to be rushed. She might have liked that. The firelight flickers against the wall. You watch it until your eyes blur. A dog pads past you. You can hear its claws click against the stone near the hearth. It sighs heavily as it settles beside someone's feet. The room smells like fur and ash and old bread. You breathe in deep. Let it settle in your lungs. The air is thick, but not unpleasant. It holds a kind of weight that presses down gently, telling you it's okay to stay here, to do nothing, to sleep. You hear someone whisper a name. You don't know who or why. Then silence again and stillness. The longhouse breathes around you, slow, steady, as if the walls themselves have lungs. Yeah, Close your eyes, this time on purpose, and you let the winter hold you. You wake to silence again. Or maybe you never really slept. It's hard to tell. Sleep here is less a solid thing and more a drifting in and out, like a leaf caught in a slow river, spinning gently as the current carries it past. The longhouse is still, but not empty. A few people are awake, moving through the morning like they've done this 100 times before. And they have. You watch them from where you lie, your breath soft against the edge of the fur still pulled to your chin. One of the old women squats near the hearth, lifting a pot with her bare hands. You wince, imagining the heat on her fingers, but she doesn't flinch. Her hands must be made of something stronger than yours, or maybe it's just experience. She ladles out the day's first portion of soup, if you can call it soup. More like warm water that used to be vegetables. It steams anyway, and the smell isn't terrible. That's enough for now. You sit up slowly, stretching each part of yourself in turn, careful not to pull anything that'll ache for hours. Your spine makes a series of small, sharp pops, and you exhale a quiet grunt. It echoes slightly, swallowed quickly by the heavy air. The curtain at the longhouse entrance flutters briefly, and a blast of cold air creeps in like a curious ghost. A young man enters, cheeks red, snow still clinging to the fur lining his hood. He stomps his boots gently by the door, trying to shake off the cold without waking those still asleep. His eyes sweep the room, and when he finds no trouble waiting for him, he smiles slightly and moves toward the fire. He carries nothing. That means no news, and that's good. You take a bowl from the stack near the wall, wooden, carved with rough circles, and you ladle your share from the pot. The liquid warms your hands through the wood, and you carry it back to your place near the wall. Sitting, with your back against the logs, you lift the bowl to your lips. The soup tastes like boiled thyme. It's soft, thin, with just the faintest hint of root vegetable and salt. You choose something that might be a piece of turnip, or maybe not. You don't question it. You just keep eating. You're learning something here, not just about the winter, but about patience and quiet. How to sit inside a moment without pressing it forward. How to let time stretch without fear. After breakfast, the work begins. Not loudly, not urgently, just begins. Someone mends a torn glove using a heavy bone needle and a strip of sinew. The stitching is slow and uneven, but careful. Another tends to a fur cloak, brushing the snow-matted clumps out with a wooden comb. The sound is soft, rhythmic, a little satisfying. You help bring in firewood, short logs stacked near the threshold. You carry 2 at a time, cradling them against your chest. They leave streaks of bark dust on your tunic, and the chill seeps through the cloth. You don't mind. The movement feels good, even if it's just a few steps back and forth. Outside, the sky is still grey, maybe lighter than before. It's hard to be sure. The clouds hang low and thick, like wool dipped in ash. You catch snowflakes in your eyelashes as you walk. You try to brush them off, then give up and let them melt. Your fingers start to sting. That's the sign to go back in. You duck beneath the hide curtain once again, and the warmth, such as it is, wraps around you. The air inside smells stronger now, like wet fur and cooked roots and wood smoke pressed into every fibre of everything. It should be unpleasant, but it isn't. Not when you've come in from the cold. A girl is braiding, her hair near the fire, fingers moving quickly as she loops each strand with practiced ease. She hums under her breath. You don't recognize the tune. It might not even be a song, just a sound to fill the space where words don't need to be. You take your place again, this time sitting with your legs stretched out toward the hearth. Your boots are stiff with half-frozen mud. You flex your toes. It takes effort. You lean your head back against the log wall and close your eyes. Not to sleep, just to rest. A story begins again. Of course it does. This one comes from one of the elders, a man with a voice like worn leather. It creaks in the best way. You can't see his face from where you sit, but you know who it is. He's told this one before. A tale of a great elk who outran a snowstorm, only to find that the storm lived in its own shadow. It doesn't make much sense. It doesn't need to. The children listen, eyes wide. Even the teenagers lean in, pretending not to. You listen too. Not to the details, but to the cadence, the rhythm, the way his voice rises and falls like a slow tide against a frozen shore. You breathe in. You breathe out. The weight of the longhouse settles around you again. This is how the day goes. In pieces. In small tasks and long silences. In bowls of broth and slow stories. No urgency, no schedule. Someone sharpens an axe outside. You hear the drag of stone against metal. Another tends to leather straps, oiling them with fat saved from the last butchering. Every task has its sound, its smell, its own small meaning. The young man from earlier plays a game with the children now. Bones and sticks tossed on the floor, in odd combinations. You don't know the rules, you don't need to. They laugh in spurts, loud, then quiet again. The room absorbs it. You close your eyes once more. The longhouse has its own rhythm, its own pulse. The fire breathes, the snow presses down on the roof above. Your breath slows, the day stretches out like a fur pelt. Soft, rough, and slightly uneven, and under it you rest again. Not because you're tired, but because that's what the winter wants. Stillness, warmth, waiting. You've stopped expecting sunlight. Not because it won't come, eventually it will, but because it no longer feels necessary. The world has settled into its winter rhythm, and your body has followed. Time has stretched into something softer, slower. The sky is just a deeper grey than the walls, and the snow outside has grown heavier, packing itself into the doorframe and thickening at the corners like it's trying to seal the longhouse shut. Inside, nothing has changed, and everything has. The fire still burns, though it's lower now, fed carefully so the wood lasts. The embers glow like the eyes of something sleeping. Quiet, steady, watching. You sit near it again, legs crossed, your hands curled around a cup of something hot. You don't know what's in it. Grains, maybe. Herbs. A bit of boiled milk. It's earthy and slightly sour, but the warmth is what matters. The heat fills your chest like breath. Someone tosses another log on the fire. Sparks leap upward. No one flinches anymore. The children are quieter today. Not sullen, just slower. They sit bundled together, two of them wrapped in the same fur cloak, like a pair of sleepy kittens. They whisper to each other in a made-up language, giggling softly at words only they understand. A third child is carving something. A small animal, maybe. His brow furrowed in deep, exaggerated concentration. The wood curls fall onto his lap, then onto the floor, where they mingle with ash and scraps and other little nothings. The woman who tends the pot has been stirring for what feels like hours. She leans over it now, murmuring something under her breath. Maybe a song, maybe a recipe, maybe just thoughts. You can't hear the words, but the sound is comforting. It makes the steam seem warmer. Outside, a storm is building. You can feel it more than hear it. The air in the longhouse has thickened slightly, as if the world beyond the walls is pressing inward. A deep, slow cold that moves like a tide under the floorboards. You tug your cloak tighter. The fur brushes your cheek, familiar now. Even the scratches in the leather have become part of the routine. The elders begin preparing for the night, even though it isn't night yet, not really. But in winter, darkness is more about feeling than the clock. When the fire's glow becomes the brightest light in the room, that's when the day ends. You help unroll the extra bedding, thick mats stuffed with straw, layered with furs that still carry the faint smell of the animals they once belonged to. The work is slow, methodical. One of the older boys fetches an armful of dry grass, dropping it beside the sleeping area. The floor crackles as it's spread. You catch yourself yawning, not from tiredness exactly, just softness, the kind of quiet that lulls you into surrendering to rest. Someone begins braiding your hair. You don't turn to look. You just let it happen. The fingers are gentle, slow. Probably someone you helped carry firewood earlier. This is the exchange of winter. Warmth for work, silence for service, comfort passed around like a bowl of stew. You think of what life must be like in summer. Boats cutting across water, voices raised, days long enough to forget night exists. But that feels far away now. Not in a sad way, just distant. Like a memory from a dream you enjoyed, but don't need to return to right away. The longhouse glows, now with the firelight. Everything seems touched by amber. The wooden beams overhead shimmer slightly in the heat, the carvings dancing with shadows. You trace one of the patterns with your eyes. A bird, maybe, or a sea serpent. It's hard to tell. The shapes twist and blend into one another, stories stacked like layers of smoke. A man sits near the fire, sharpening a knife. The sound is soft, stone against metal, slow and steady, not for battle, just for chores. Cutting rope, slicing meat. The knife glints once, catching a spark of light, then disappears back into shadow. Someone sneezes. A second later, someone else says something that sounds like a blessing, or a joke. Either way, the sneezer chuckles. The laughter barely lifts above a murmur, but it spreads like warmth. You roll out your own bedding and sit on the edge of it, running your hands over the fur. It's slightly damp from the day before, but not unpleasant. The scent of campfire and hide clings to it. You lay back slowly, pulling one edge over your legs. The warmth creeps in like rising water. The fire flickers again, casting light across the faces of those nearby. Everyone looks softer in this light, more human, less busy. The sharpness of their cheekbones dulls in the glow. Wrinkles become rivers, eyes become pools. A voice begins telling a story again. This one is older, slower, not for entertainment, but for memory. It's a story of ancestors, of someone who survived a winter with no food, but found a frozen fish in a snowbank, of a woman who gave birth during a blizzard, alone in the woods, and named her child after the wind. No one interrupts. The words wrap around the longhouse like another layer of fur, thicker than any blanket. You turn on your side. The fire pops again, and someone stirs it gently with a stick. Embers rise, then fall. A few float toward the ceiling before vanishing like thoughts you meant to keep. You close your eyes just for a moment. Your thoughts are soft, like wool against the skin. Dream not in pictures but in warmth, in sounds, in comfort. The longhouse becomes a boat, and you drift across the sea of sleep. The storm outside finally arrives. You hear it now. Wind against the roof, snow thumping softly against the walls, but it's distant, separate. Like the world outside is a song muffled by closed doors. You are safe here, in the rhythm, in the breath of fire, in the hush of shared sleep. You're not sure whether it's morning or just a lighter shade of night. The longhouse glows dimly, still heavy with sleep, still thick with the smell of smoke and old wool. The fire is down to glowing coals, huddled like embers beneath a blanket of ash. A few people stir, adjusting their furs, shifting weight, murmuring half-formed thoughts that never quite become words. You remain where you are, lying flat on your back, staring up at the dark beams overhead. Your breath moves gently across your lips, warm against the chill of the air. You pull the fur tighter up to your neck and let your eyes trace the lines of the rafters. The wind outside has softened. Last night's storm must have passed, but it left something behind, something still pressing against the walls of the longhouse, as if the snow itself were holding everything in place, locking it in a hush. Someone begins to rise nearby. You hear the soft creak of a bench, the whisper of feet on straw. A cloak being lifted. They don't speak, and neither do you. There's no need. You roll slowly onto your side, careful not to let the cold air slip under your furs. Your hand brushes against the wooden wall. It's cold to the touch, rough and a little damp. The wood swells in winter. It holds the moisture, like a sponge, breathing it in. The longhouse lives with you. It shifts, it groans, it settles. The elder woman who tends the hearth is already crouched beside the coals. Her hands move with practiced rhythm, adding kindling, blowing gently, coaxing the fire back to life with the same patience she might use on a restless child. A flicker, a glow, then a low flame begins to rise. The light returns slowly, licking at the stone ring, catching on the steam from a pot you hadn't noticed. Something is already cooking. Maybe it never stopped. Maybe it simmered all night, like the longhouse itself, half asleep, half awake, never fully either. You sit up and wrap your cloak around your shoulders. The cold finds your back immediately. It snakes along your spine in a slow shiver. You exhale sharply and rub your arms. The sensation is uncomfortable but familiar, like a friend who never quite learned manners. Your feet find the floor. Cold, solid, familiar. You cross to the fire and join the others. A bowl is passed to you without a word. It's filled with something pale and thick, studded with grains and flecks of root. You cradle it in your hands and let the warmth spread. You eat slowly, spoon by spoon, watching the fire grow stronger with each passing minute. Conversations begin, not loudly, but gently, like branches creaking under soft snow. A man speaks of repairing the fishing nets, even though there's no open water for weeks. Another wonders aloud whether the smoke from the longhouse can be seen from the sea. Someone jokes that even the gods would get lost in this kind of grey. No, laughter that follows is quiet but real. You finish your meal and set the bowl aside. Your body is warming now from the inside out. You stretch again, long and slow, joints clicking like the hull of an old boat. No one notices, or if they do, they don't mind. Outside, the snow presses in against the walls, muffling even the creak of trees. A few brave souls step out, cloaks pulled tight, cheeks wrapped in fur. Their departure lets in a brief gust of freezing air that snakes through the room like a curious spirit. You pull your cloak tighter around you. It passes quickly, but not without a trace. The elders begin talking of the past, not loudly, not as a lesson, just remembering. One speaks of a winter when the snow reached the thatch. Another tells of a bear that wandered too close to the village and refused to leave, only to disappear in the night like a ghost. The children sit near their feet, wide-eyed, unsure where the truth ends and the tale begins. That's the way stories work here. Some of them are true, some of them used to be, and some are simply too old to care. You find yourself staring into the fire again. The flames sway gently, dancing low and bright. They remind you of water, of wind, of the flickering edge of sleep. You blink once, then again. The world around you begins to soften. The longhouse breathes in slow harmony, faint movements. A pot stirred, a foot scraped, a head rested on a shoulder. Life without rush. You wonder how people did this year after year, how they lived through so many winters. And then you realize they didn't fight it, they joined it. They folded themselves into the rhythm of the dark. They surrendered to the stillness. They listened to the hush and let it reshape them. You lie back down, slowly, carefully. Your furs find your shape again. Your body remembers how to relax. A young girl hums something under her breath. A lullaby, maybe, or a tune her mother sang once. She rocks slightly as she does it, eyes closed, hands wrapped around her knees. You don't need to know the words. The melody is enough. You close your eyes and listen. To the fire, to the wind beyond the walls, to the quiet life of the longhouse, to your own breath in, out, out. Another day passing without noise. The cold is different today. Not sharper, not stronger, just older. Like it's settled in with a kind of permanence. The way dust settles on untouched shelves or silence settles in an empty chapel. It isn't trying to chase anyone out anymore. It's just part of the room now. Like the fire, like the furs, like you. You're still beneath your covers, barely awake, eyes half-lidded. Someone walks quietly past your bedding and steps over a log left near the hearth. Their feet are wrapped in wool and hide. Their gait is slow and careful, like they've already slipped once today and don't intend to repeat it. You shift slightly and peek out from under the edge of your fur. The light filtering in through the smoke hole is pale and yellowish. Not golden, not warm. Just there, present. Like the sun was trying to shine, but got tired halfway through and decided to sit down. A dog stirs beside the fire. It stretches, one stiff leg out, then the other, then rolls onto its side with a great sigh. Its fur is speckled with ash. Its breath curls in the cold like smoke. You sit up. Your cloak is where you left it, folded neatly beside your bedding. It smells like everything else now. Smoke, leather, people, snow. You wrap it around your shoulders and listen to the faint crackle of the fire. Someone's added damp wood, and it hisses faintly, like the logs are complaining as they burn. You move closer to the hearth and settle on a cushion of folded fur. The warmth touches your skin in places, your knees, your hands, your face, but the cold still curls around your back like a sleeping cat. It doesn't bite, not anymore. It just watches. The longhouse is mostly awake, but only in the way winter allows. People are up, yes, but no one is busy. Not truly. One man is repairing a sandal strap, his fingers moving slowly, methodically. Another sits near the door, carving a spoon from a block of wood, brushing shavings away with the edge of his wrist. The children whisper among themselves. Their voices are muffled, little hums of laughter and secrets like bird song buried beneath layers of snow. You join a small group spreading out furs near the hearth. Not for sleeping, just for sitting. A shared space. A middle ground between waking and resting. You take your place, legs crossed beneath you, cloak pooled at your sides. An elder begins to speak. No announcement, no call to listen. Just a voice drifting into the air like steam from a cup. He talks about a time when the winters were even darker than this, when snow piled as high as the roof beams, when they had to tunnel through the drifts to move between houses. He speaks slowly, with pauses so long they feel like naps. Everyone listens, not because it's a great tale, but because it's being told. And in winter, that's enough. Your eyes wander as he speaks. You watch the smoke rise and thin, spirals toward the rafters. You watch a small crack in the wall leak daylight in a thin silver ribbon. You watch someone mend a torn sleeve, threading bone needle through fabric in slow, steady loops. The fire pops again. A bit of ash lands near your foot. You brush it away without thinking. A woman beside you offers you a piece of dried apple. It's hard, slightly chewy, sweet in a way that makes your jaw tighten. You thank her with a nod, chewing slowly as the elder's story drifts on. Something about a wolf, or a storm, or both. The details aren't important. The rhythm is. Someone opens the hide door. Light spills in, brighter than you expected. It cuts through the room like a blade, throwing long shadows across the floor. The wind carries snow with it, a flurry of white dust that dances briefly in, the firelight before melting on the floor. The man who enters has a bow slung across his back and a long streak of frost in his beard. He stamps his boots and pulls his hood down. His cheeks are raw, red, glowing. There's colour in the sky, he says softly. Everyone pauses, no one moves quickly. But people shift, heads lift, eyes turn. You step outside a few minutes later when the air has settled. Your cloak is tight around you. Your breath immediately fogs the air. The snow is deep, your boots sinking past the ankle. It squeaks beneath your steps, dry, tight-packed, brittle. And there it is, the colour. A pale ribbon of blue and green, like someone dragged a watercolour brush across the sky. Faint, fading, but real. The northern lights, or maybe just a hint of them. You're not sure what causes them. No one really is. Spirits, fire trapped in the sky, the gods practicing with their spears. You stare up until your neck aches, and your eyes water from the cold. It's beautiful, not loud, not overwhelming, just quiet. Like everything else here, the others come out, one by one. Some say nothing. Some gasp softly. One child claps their hands, then immediately hides them back in their cloak, wincing from the cold. The lights don't stay long. They drift, they fade, they vanish. But they were here. And for now, that's enough. You go back inside, nose stinging, cheeks flushed. You shake the snow from your boots and crouch again near the fire. The warmth is immediate, wrapping around. You like memory. Someone hands you a cup. You don't ask what's in it. You sip. It's hot, bitter, slightly sweet. You settle into your spot again. Your cloak is still dusted with snow, and it begins to melt. You can feel it dampening the back of your shirt, but you don't move. You breathe in deep. The fire crackles, the longhouse sighs, and outside the sky darkens once more. You're not entirely sure how many days have passed. The longhouse no longer marks time in hours or even sunrises. It breathes in cycles, warmth, food, sleep, wake, repeat. And somewhere inside that soft rhythm, you've let go of the need to measure anything at all. You exist here now, like a log in the wall or a blanket on the floor. Present, useful, quiet. You wake to muffled sounds. Someone grinding grain. The soft swoosh of a broom made from bundled twigs brushing over packed earth. The fire is already lit. The smoke is low and lazy, curling in gentle ribbons toward the beams above. You blink slowly and let your eyes adjust. Your muscles feel heavy, not sore, just weighted. The way they always do in this kind of weather, when it feels like even your own bones want to hibernate. You shift under the furs, rubbing one foot over the other until the feeling returns. Then you sit up, stretch, and let your cloak drape over your shoulders like old habit. You walk toward the fire, barefoot. The stone floor is cold against your soles. It bites at first, then fades to a dull chill, the kind that lingers without pressing too hard. You curl your toes instinctively, then uncurl them. A quiet negotiation with the cold. A woman ladles porridge into wooden bowls. The steam curls upward like smoke from a small chimney. You take a bowl and sit cross-legged beside the fire. The warmth of the bowl seeping into your fingers, up your wrists into your chest. The porridge is thick, plain, with a faint hint of honey stirred in at the centre, like a secret. You eat slowly, watching the flames reflect in the polished curve of the spoon. Outside, snow continues to fall. Not fiercely, not urgently, just persistently. You glance toward the curtain covering the door and see a thick white drift pushing at its base, trying to find a way inside. It won't win. Not today. One of the elders shuffles past, mumbling to herself. She settles on a bench near the wall and begins sorting through a pile of dried herbs. Crushed leaves, brittle stems, twisted roots. The smell drifts through the air. Sharp, earthy, faintly bitter. Medicine, or tea, or both. You finish your meal and hand your bowl to a child who's collecting them. She doesn't speak, just nods once, curls a strand of hair behind her ear, and moves on. Her footsteps are almost silent. She's learned the quiet. The longhouse today feels more like a cocoon than ever. Thick, still, safe, as if the outside world has gone to sleep entirely, and you're all just waiting in the belly of something timeless, wrapped in wood and wool and breath. Someone strums a lyre. Not a song, just a few notes, unfinished, wandering. You recognize the tune, something you've heard once before, maybe in a market or on a summer night with smoke in the air and ale in your cup. But here it sounds different, slower, softer, like memory of the song rather than the thing itself. A few people hum along. One voice, deep and rough, starts to sing quietly, not caring whether anyone joins him or not. His voice cracks on the high parts. No one laughs. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to feel the floor beneath you is warm in spots from the fire. Your shoulders are cold where your cloak has slipped. You pull it back into place with one hand lazily. You think of home, of whatever home used to be. A smaller fire, different voices, the same kind of stillness maybe, or maybe not. But it doesn't matter now. This is your home for now. In the corner, two men are playing a game with carved knuckle bones. They roll them across a low table, speaking in short phrases, mostly teasing, mostly half serious. One of them laughs too hard and snorts. The other smacks his shoulder in mock offense. The noise lasts only a second before the quiet reclaims the room. A bowl of dried berries makes its way around. You take a small handful, tart and leathery, your teeth working through the skin before reaching sweetness. You chew slowly and think about the fact that someone gathered these in autumn, months ago, just for this, a gift from a season you barely remember. You feel the weight of winter in your chest, not heavy, just deep. It's not a sadness. It's not joy either. It's something else. A kind of pause, like the world is holding its breath beneath the snow. You spend the rest of the morning helping to patch a fur cloak. The work is slow and satisfying. You stitch along the edge with a curved bone needle, looping the thread carefully, adjusting tension with your fingertips. The fur smells faintly of the animal it once belonged to, musk and dust and wilderness. You don't mind. You find yourself breathing it in on purpose. By the time you finish, your fingers are stiff. You stretch them out beside the fire and flex them slowly. The warmth seeps in again, loosening your joints like oil in a frozen lock. The afternoon comes without announcement, just a slight change in the light. The fire is stoked again. The stew pot is stirred. People shifted their weight. The longhouse sighs. You lie back against a bundle of furs, letting the firelight dance across your closed eyelids. The sounds around you melt together. Spoon scraping bowl, someone humming, logs settling in the fire. a child giggling once and then stopping themselves. Outside, the wind has returned. It doesn't howl. It whispers, as if winter itself is checking the door, reminding you it's still out there, still waiting. You pull your furs tighter, cocoon yourself again, and drift. The warmth in the longhouse isn't just from the fire. It's from people, from shared breath, from old songs, from the rhythm of hands doing quiet work. This is how the Vikings slept through brutal winters, not with defiance, but with surrender, with patience, with one long, endless exhale. It's late, or early, but those words don't quite mean what they used to. Not here, not anymore. You open your eyes to the dark, not because something woke you, but because your body decided to stir. The fire has dwindled to a low cradle of orange embers flickering softly like the last heartbeat of a dream. The longhouse is still. Even the wind has stopped. You shift beneath your furs and listen. Truly listen. There's something rare about this hour. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty but full of breath, of bodies wrapped in sleep, of thoughts that move slowly like smoke. No footsteps, no talking, just the soft creak of wooden beams and the crackle of a coal giving in to ash. You sit up gently, careful not to wake the person sleeping closest to you. They've turned in their sleep, one hand resting above the furs, fingers curled as if gripping a thought. Their breath is steady, faintly audible in the stillness. You tuck your cloak around your shoulders and move slowly, carefully, toward the fire. The floor is cold, but you've grown used to that. The shock of it barely registers anymore. It's like greeting an old friend who always forgets your name, but still offers you a seat. You crouch near the hearth, brush aside some ash, and add a small log, not too big, just enough to keep the heart of the fire alive. The wood catches after a few moments, popping once, then settling into a slow, comfortable burn. You don't move. You just sit beside it, hands resting on your knees, letting the warmth seep upward. You think you're alone until a quiet rustle behind you reveals another early riser, the elder woman again, always up before everyone, as if sleep were something she gave away to the rest of you. She lowers herself beside the fire with a slow, practiced motion. Her knees creak louder than the floorboards, but she makes no sound of complaint. You nod to her. She nods back. Neither of you says a word. She begins preparing something in a small pot, just water and herbs. The steam rises gently, curling into the rafters. A few minutes later, she pours the drink into 2 wooden cups and passes one to you. It's bitter, earthy, slightly sour, but warm. You drink it slowly, letting each sip melt into your chest. Others begin to stir, one at a time. A soft cough, the shuffle of feet, a whispered name. No one speaks loudly. The longhouse knows it is still night, even if eyes are open. Today will be the same and entirely different. The air feels heavier now, not in a dreadful way, just thicker, more certain, as if winter has decided to stay a while longer, as if the snow outside has reached some new depth, pressing against the world like a second roof. You move through your morning tasks without needing to think. You've learned the routine. Help sweep the floor, shake out the sleeping furs, feed the fire. Accept a bowl of porridge, steaming and bland and perfect. The warmth from it reaches behind your eyes. You eat slowly, grateful for the quiet. Later, you help gather snow from outside. Clean snow, untouched, to be melted for water. The cold stings your face as you push open the hide curtain. The world beyond is pure white, every shape softened. No edges, no colours, just curves and hush. The snow swallows your boots. Each step is an effort. But there's something peaceful in it. Walking slowly through a world that asks you to do nothing more than exist. You fill a wooden pail and carry it back, cradling it carefully, as if it held something more than water, something sacred. Back inside, the longhouse welcomes you with its familiar smell. Smoke and straw and old wood and people. You set the pail near the hearth and watch as the ice begins to melt. Tiny rivulets trickle down the side. A few drops land on your hands, shockingly cold, and you wipe them off on your sleeve. You sit again near the fire and stretch your legs out. The others are busy now, sewing, weaving, repairing broken tools. A group of children practices throwing pebbles into a ring scratched into the floor. Their laughter is quiet but contagious. You find yourself smiling without knowing why. One of the elders begins to tell another story. This one is about the stars. He talks about how, in deep winter, when the sky clears just right, you can see the path the gods walk between worlds, a long streak of white across the night, what you might know as the Milky Way. But here, it's a bridge of light, a road for souls, a map written in cold fire. You look up at the ceiling as he speaks, as if you might glimpse it through the beams. You know it's not there, but the story makes you feel like it is. Someone passes around dried fish. You take a piece and chew slowly. It's salty and tough, but filling, the kind of food that keeps you moving even when everything wants you to stop. And still, the longhouse holds you. This is how survival works here. Not by force, not by stubbornness, but by rhythm. By doing what needs to be done. Slowly, gently, again and again. Like breath, like snow falling. As the day passes, the fire stays steady. People come and go, each movement soft, each sound absorbed by the thick wooden walls. You doze once, then wake again, without knowing how much time has passed. It doesn't matter. Outside, it begins to snow again. You can't hear it, but you feel it. In the hush of the room. In the way everyone moves just a little slower, as if the sky were laying another blanket over the world. You lie back again on your furs, letting your eyes drift closed. You think of warmth, of hands brushing wool, of stories curling around firelight, of songs sung not to perform, but to remember. You don't sleep right away, but you don't need to, because here, in the heart of winter, sleep finds you when it's ready, and when it does, it wraps around you the way snow wraps the land, softly, steadily, without end. You're dreaming, but not the kind of dream that floats or flickers. This one feels like the longhouse itself, steady, rooted, layered in fur and smoke and memory. You don't see anything in particular, not really, just warmth, a sense of stillness, of breath and fire, and the weight of sleep that doesn't ask questions. When you wake, the air feels different, not warmer, not brighter, just lighter, as if the sky outside has unclenched slightly. The snow no longer presses so hard against the door. The walls don't creak quite so much in protest. Something has shifted. Not loudly, just enough. You stretch beneath the furs and let your limbs move slowly, like you're remembering how to own your body again. Your back is stiff, but not sore. Your hands are dry, slightly cracked, but still useful. The fire is burning already. As always, someone must have risen earlier than you, tended it, coaxed the heat from the coals before they cooled completely. You rise too quietly and step into your cloak. It wraps around your shoulders like second skin. You pull the hood up, more from habit than need. The others are stirring. Soft sounds, the rustle of fabric, muted coughs, whispered good mornings. You walk toward the entrance. The leather curtain is stiff, rimmed with frost along the edges. You pause, then lift it gently and step outside. And there it is, the light. Faint, yes. Pale and fragile, but unmistakable. The sun is rising, not just pretending, not lingering behind clouds, but actually rising, casting a soft pink glow across the snow. It shimmers, catches on every drift and frozen branch. The longhouse roof sparkles. A bird calls out from somewhere. Nearby, thin, unsure, but real. The world has colour again. Not much, but enough to feel it. You breathe in deeply. The cold rushes into your lungs, but it doesn't sting the way it used to. It's gentler now. Still winter, yes, still bitter. But the sharpest edge is gone. You look down at your footprints in the snow, then back toward the door you came from. The longhouse sits low and solid, blanketed in white, smoke curling gently from the hole in its roof. A warm place. A waiting place. Behind you, someone laughs. It's not loud, not boisterous, just a chuckle, tired and amused and alive. You glance over and see two of the younger men trying to fix a sled. One of them slips, catching himself with a curse. The other offers him a hand and a half joke. You smile. You didn't think you'd laugh in winter. But here you are. Back inside, the morning continues like all the others. Porridge, hot water, cracked lips and steam. But there's something new in the rhythm now. An awareness that the season is shifting. That survival has not only been endured, but shared. You help with the daily tasks. You carry water. You patch a seam. You play a game with a child who beats you more often than you'd like to admit. And at some point, someone begins to speak of spring. Not loudly, not as a certainty. Just the word, like a stone dropped into still water. Spring, the idea of it settles into the room like warmth from a second fire. Someone else mentions the sea, the boats, the oars they'll repair, the nets they'll soak. Their voice is almost hesitant, as if afraid to chase the cold away too quickly. But the seed has been planted. Spring is not here yet, but it is imagined. And sometimes, imagining is enough to begin. The afternoon passes in quiet work. The sky stays light just a little longer. A few more minutes than yesterday. You notice this, and so do the others, though no one says it out loud. By evening, the longhouse glows again with fire and breath and familiar smells. A stew simmers, this one heartier than usual. Salted meat, wild roots, dried herbs from the pouch of a careful hand. You help stir it, your thoughts slow and warm. When the bowls are passed, people eat with a little more energy. Not much, just enough to suggest that something is stirring beneath the surface. The way seeds know when to wake up. Someone begins a story. An old one, but told differently this time. More laughter, more colour. The shadows dance along the walls, and you watch them, remembering the first night you arrived. How tall the flames looked, how far away spring seemed then. Now it feels closer. Later, when you lie down beneath your furs, you do so without dread, without bracing. The chill is still there, yes, but you know it now. You've lived with it, slept with it, shared silence and song and steam and stories beside it. You close your eyes and drift, not because the cold demands it, but because you choose it. You sleep deeply, like the earth beneath snow, like rivers waiting for thaw. And outside, somewhere in the dark, a tiny patch of ice melts from the sun that rose this morning. That's how winter ends. Not with thunder, but with breath and warmth and dreams.